So at this point, Rex and Sarah, gosh, what are your questions for Sean? We've got not quite 20 minutes with him.
I have to say I really agree with what Sean says, is that your children's happiness really depends on the parents' happiness. And when parents are happy, kids will do way better. And the way I can attest to that is my wife and I we were married and we were living in Florida for a long time, and we're just not happy there at all. And then when we moved to Utah about 5 years ago, totally changed our outlook, and it really had a huge impact on our kids. So what Sean is preaching here, I'm just the choir singing to the preacher here, but it's so true. If you're happy if you're a happy parent, your kids will be happy.
Wow. So, that's a great take-home message today. I love it.
Yeah.
And I was
going to ask, you had Reese's Pieces Buttercup Pizza?
No. No, I used to keep, when I saw little children, elementary, I kept a bunch of snacks. I had a snack bag or a snack box. They'd pick one on their way out. Oh. Yeah, who was picking more every day?
Yeah, who was more for the kids, huh?
I get it.
Well,
yeah.
I have a question for Shauna.
Yes, Sarah.
Okay. So, Sean, the question is, how do I find the balance between firm enough but not like authoritarian?
Right. So, okay. You never want to shame your kids. You never want to guilt your kids. You never want to humiliate them. These were the tools of my father's generation. They say like kids are like wet concrete. You drop something and it leaves an imprint. So you had to be really careful what you say, sticks. So firm, you have to follow through. You have to follow through. A lot of parents make threats and don't follow through, or they we're in a different space. So yeah, of course, we'll go for ice cream now. No. That's off the table. So anytime your kid disparages you, talks down to you, curses at you, swears at you, kids want boundaries. So when you don't set limits or boundaries, they push harder and harder until they get them. So if I can yell at you, can I curse at you? If I can curse at you, can I hit you? If I can hit you, do I have to listen to you at all? So you have to catch it early. And I found, I tell parents, I really believe in mob boss parenting. Mob boss parenting means, you never see a mob boss, a real one, yell or lose it. So I remember when my daughter had a cell phone, one daughter became a disaster. It's the biggest parenting mistake I ever made, hands down. And I was trying to get the phone from her, arguing to get the phone from her, doing all this stuff. And the more you argue and the more you explain, the more you justify and educate, the weaker you are as a parent. You find yourself down that path. So I remember the turning point was I just got a flip phone when she was in sleep. I took away her smartphone. I put the flip phone there, and she came in the living room and said, "What is this?" I said, "It's your new phone until you can get out of the house on time at least 4 days a week." And she was like, I said, "We're not discussing it. There's nothing to discuss here." And that was it. So they have to feel the firmness of that. And also, when you don't fight with them, I remember this horrible moment. My daughter, my oldest daughter, I can look, I have a lot of my father in me. I'm working on it all the time, but I said something rude. We have 4 of us in a bathroom. It's Manhattan, and I said something my daughter probably rude or something. And I was dressed up. I was going over. She threw a glass of water in my face. So I stood there like water just dripping onto my suit, and and something in me just broke, and I said, "Wow." And I just walked away, and I didn't talk to her for like 2 or 3 days. She would be like, "Papa, I said, "I don't want to talk about it. I'm so hurt by what happened. I'm so upset. I'm not talking about it. I'm not ready." So creating a space, a reflective space for your kid where they can, with the fight takes away a reflective space. Creating that space where they have to live with themselves. You know, when you screw up, you have to live with yourself. She wrote we got through that and it was fine, but she wrote an essay for school that my wife showed me, sort of snuck it out. It was called The Lowest Moment of My Life. And it was that moment. Yeah. So restraining yourself and not becoming reactive and creating a reflective space. I remember I told this guy Howard from Jersey, you can't yell at your daughter anymore. And if you have anything good to say, don't say anything. So he stopped talking. And his daughter came to me and said, what did you do to my dad? She was so upset because she liked fighting with him. She got gratified by making him feel crazy. So, Sarah, that's a very long-winded answer, but I think the shorter and the clearer you are on expectations, and maybe a family meeting to agree on expectations, bedtime. I have something on my site. It's screen time contract for parents, or everyone signs on. We're off our phones at 9 o'clock. You can make it up, fill in the blanks. But kids love structure. They want it. Without structure, anxiety spikes and behavior problems spike too.
That's interesting what you were saying about the daughter getting upset that the dad wouldn't talk to her. I've heard this. I'm not equating it to that, but I've heard that neglect is worse than abuse.
Right.
Is that true?
Oh, yeah. 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 But
that's probably why she was fighting with him, because she got the interaction she wanted.
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think, he was still there. They still ate dinner together. He wasn't mean. He wasn't punishing. He wasn't shaming. But he was also, in any relationship, where in the world can someone mistreat you and you just accept it? Parenting, apparently. So I think with Sarah, you decide where you draw the line. Sometimes they screw up and all right, no big deal. But sometimes you cross the line. You cross the line.
And that's incredible that story you told. I really like these personal stories you have, because there's so much, they're relatable, and I can identify with them, and just standing there for a minute, collecting yourself. And like you said, rather than reacting, just walking away and just like, there's a saying, I like what you said about the concrete thing, where kids are like wet concrete. You drop something, it leaves an imprint. And I've heard it said a different way, whereas, is spilled milk going to matter in tomorrow? No, but it might in 10 years. How you react to it will really matter. And when I heard that, blew me away. And the concrete thing you said is another thing that's going to stick with me forever, because that's such a beautiful way of saying, like, what you do really does have an impact that lasts for a long time.
Well, we can all attest to that, right? We all have those voices in our head.
Right, those memories, yes.
And memories of our own upbringing of, I remember when my dad did this or my dad did that. I love the story how your dad said, no school today. And that's like a beautiful memory for you. You just went and had a blast with your dad, who's being happy.
Yeah, that does more. And I think turning around my own parenting style and spending more time having fun with each child separately, they felt special. They felt, cared for. They come home and said, we did this. We got pancakes. It's in my book, The Pancake Solution. That changed my whole family, making pancakes. Finding ways to have fun. And I remember once I had sort of collapsed. I had pneumonia. We were going on a family vacation, and I pulled in a city MD, and they said, you have pneumonia. And I got in the car, and I said, we can't go on this trip. And we wound up at my parents' house, and I'm in bed. And I said to my kids, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about this. And my daughter was like, I guess she was like 8. She says, oh, Papa, we have fun no matter where we are. Oh. And I was like, oh.
That's great.
Yeah, but it took like 10 years of reinventing myself to have that kind of relationship with my kids.
That's a payday. That's what we call that. That's awesome, Sean.
That's beautiful. Well, Sean, how did you get into this line of work? Like, what was your moment where you're like, I got to do this kind of work?
Yeah, it took forever. I told my daughters, if you get a job and work in an office before you're 30, I'll be very upset. So I spent like 20 years, probably worrying my parents. My father's a boat builder. And I was supposed to be a boat builder, and that didn't happen. He's still upset about that. But I think I was asked to volunteer for a friend who was running a youth center. He said, "Could you come in and teach a class?" And I said, "What am I going to teach?" He said, "Well, you did acting." And I said, "But yeah, in high school." He said, "Teach acting." And so I went with these kids that were really some really hard cases. I had so much fun. I was almost 30 by then. And I said, God, I wonder if I can make a living at this, just hanging out. And that was the start of it. That was the start. Up till then, I just worked so many awful jobs, But the Odyssey years are important. I don't think you can really lay down. For me, my roots didn't grow until I hit 30.
That's awesome. I like how you call it the Odyssey years. I had my own little windy, weird path to get to where I am too. So,
yeah, I have and one daughter's in Japan right now working on a farm. She didn't go to college. I had to abandon my expectations.
Yep, you bet.
She's having the time of her life. So, okay, I'll take it.
It's a beautiful country to farm in.
Good. Sarah, did you have any other questions?
I guess I'm just thinking about the imprint, like the concrete thing as well. Any thoughts about just if you could say one thing that a parent could remember to just help create, the beautiful memories and not leave that imprint. I mean, I know we're all gonna make mistakes as parents, but just one parenting advice that you have.
Yeah, I would say for me, and this is something I work on pretty regularly. The first impulse isn't usually the enlightened choice.
The best. Okay.
Yeah. So I constantly, actually have it written down in my date book, this reminder to just take a pause. Just take a pause. Reactivity breeds kids that are impulsive and reactive, but it's so simple. One of my teachers said to me the other day when I'm running therapy groups and I feel overwhelmed, there's a mutiny underway or something. And she said, just tell him, give me a minute. I need a minute. And in that minute, I can make choices. When you're reactive, you're not making a choice. So you're off balance. But in that reflective pause, we call it, every time you make a decision of with your behavior, you strengthen your sense of yourself. Every time you do something spontaneous, it's usually reckless, and you suffer the most in the end. The shame and regret. And
so you mentioned.
So reflective.
Okay, and you mentioned you have a Buddhist practice. Do you feel like that kind of helps you, like to have some kind of a spiritual practice or some type of something like that to help you be able to take that pause?
Yeah, it took me a long time. I've been practicing hardcore for 35 years. I think I'd like to redo the first 20.
I understand.
It wasn't until the last 10 years that I really got the hang of it. But yeah, any kind of meditative, reflective, any kind of thing that provokes mindfulness, instead of like, why is my kid being such a brat? You may think, why is my kid so unhappy? And what's at the root of that? And dig beyond, which with Buddhism, all the time you spend reflecting on your choices. And every day, I start every day with an hour practice. I always find some insight in something that seemed hopeless or just so confusing to me. I may say like, oh, I need a vacation.
Yeah. Yep. It'll come to you, right?
I mean, big thing. But you don't think, like, I'm so angry all the time, so irritable. What is going on? And, oh yeah, it's been a while. So in those pause moments, you can find the true cause of your unhappiness. And usually it comes down to our own choices.
Beautiful. Well put. I like the old saying, I think this is connected to Buddhism in some way, but if the string is too tight, it will break. And if it's too loose, it will not play. So have a little medium in there.
That's great. I'm going to steal that, Rex.
I do like
Go for it, man.
Another podcast.
Yeah, right. Sean, we'd love to have you again sometime. I think you're brilliant. I love what you do. Support you fully. I think your groups are so blessed. Wow. You've given me some new insight on support groups. I think that's I'm going to be studying more. And I love your book. Wish you were here to sign it. I'm going to keep it.
Is that his book back there?
Yes. Yep. When Kids Call the Shots.
Down and show it to us real quick.
When Kids Call the Shots.
Oh, here. Yeah, this just came out. I don't know if you can see it.
I saw that too. Tell us a little bit. Just tell us what that's about. Is that about your practice?
No, this is the most read Psychology Today blogs. So the first book's just parenting, but this I deal with like grief, happiness, lifestyle fatigue, addiction, depression. This is my bathroom book.
That's it. I'm going to say that's your Reader's Digest. That's very cool.
This one article and you're done. You're out of there.
Well, remember, Sean Grover, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I'm so glad we could circle back around with each other and do this today.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a few minutes to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. When you hit the like button and leave a comment, your feedback helps us improve the show. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and connect with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and on Facebook at Stronger Marriage. Be sure to share with us what topics you want us to explore or what you loved about today's episode. If you want even more resources to improve your relationship connection, visit our website at strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producers Rex Polanis and Alexis Alcott and the team at Utah State University. And you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission